So, if you've been on the internet lately, you've seen a lot of Joe Rogan popping up, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere, clips, him apologizing, him saying this. But there's one clip that made the rounds that really touched me. This was the one where it said Joe Rogan using the N word, and this thing blew up like on Friday, Saturday. And I saw it, and it made me start to think like, there's something wrong with the world. we are in a we're in a weird situation because we live at a time whereby people love to hold each other accountable for our actions, for our decisions. Anything you said, anything you did, you will be held accountable for it. But one of the problems that we have with holding people accountable is, what is the consequence to me holding you accountable? And it feels as if the world is agreed that the only way that I can hold you accountable now is to cancel you. And we've created this culture of cancel culture to whereby if you do anything public now, you're very much afraid to say anything that doesn't go, that's not popular, or something that doesn't go with the masses. So you cannot say, you cannot say anything against women, you cannot say anything against people with my skin tone, you cannot say I cannot say anything about people without my skin tone. And I have to be very careful about the words that I use based on my opinions, because the world will hold me accountable for those things. And the consequence of that is not, I want you to apologize or I want you to say sorry. The consequence of that is, well, I'm going to cancel you, because that is the only consequence that happens. Listen, if you steal and you're caught, people call the police arrest you, all right? You get a jail sentence based on the amount of things or whatever, the how, to what extent of that crime occurred, right? Which is different from holding someone accountable for the things that they said. Because if you come in 2022 and we have evidence of what you said in 2014 and we try to hold you accountable for that, it's not really legal to say something, right? And in this context, is in the context of the N word, which is a very unusual word, because it's a word that when black people are talking to each other, it has zero meaning. It's just, yo, what's up? You know what I mean? Like it's a way of referencing someone. And then if a white person says it to you, you have to feel some type of way, because there's a lot of hurtful remarks based on that, on why they're saying it. And there's a lot of videos on the internet that I can explain this to you guys. But where I'm going with it is, as society, I feel like we've forgotten how much we've progressed. You know, if you look back in 2005, 2006, in that time period, people were using the N word regardless of how you felt. Like, it wasn't a politically incorrect term. And if you look at the Joe Rogan podcast, it started in 2009. So if we go from 2009, we see that the word became politically correct, let's say 2015, 2016. And then now we are where we are. We've progressed as a world. But if we are holding people accountable for things that they did say 10 years ago, it's, what do you want? What's the gist of what is it that you want? Like, what do you want? And you live in a situation where people are like, oh, we should cancel this person. But the question is, what does that achieve? What does that do? What does canceling somebody mean? Because I feel like, for me, the way I look at canceling people or cancel culture has always been about, you have somebody who's unwilling to change, which is the same thing with countries use this thing by doing what they call sanctions. Sanctions are just there to force someone to change the way they operate or do something, which is the same thing with cancel culture, which is when you go to someone and say, here's the evidence of you doing something. Do you agree? And that person says, no, I don't see anything wrong with what I did. You only cancel them as a way of making them see that there is a consequence to their action. But when you start to use canceling as a weapon, then we have a problem. And the reason that I have a problem with this, it's when you look at Twitter. When I look at Twitter, when this clip of Joe Rogan came out, I'll play a bit for you guys, which was taken out of context. I don't really have the whole video because I don't want to be against YouTube guidelines. But the thing about it, it's people then perpetuated to say this man is a racist. Now, I cannot come here and say I know Joe Rogan. I don't know him. I don't know how he feels about people of color, how he feels about black people. That's within him. I can only take the words that he said and put online and say, this is what he said. He put out an apology yesterday saying, I'm sorry, not yesterday or the day before, saying that he's sorry for using those words. The moment you have to say you're not racist, you know you've messed up. He put it out, and I don't know how sincere. Only him can tell, because we can all come out and say apologies. We've all probably said apologies, especially when it starts affecting our bank accounts. But in this instance, you cannot then just come out and say, okay, here's the evidence. This man said the N-word. This man is a racist. And then the question for you then is, what's next? You've proved your point. You've put out the video, you've tweeted it, I saw one celebrity, they tweeted it, retweeted it, re-commented, quoted on it, and then it's what's your fight? What are you fighting for? What do you want to happen? Oh, I want Joe Rogan to be cancelled because he's a racist. And then it's like, okay, and then what do we achieve after that? He's gone, he's off the platforms. Are you happy? Has that boosted your life? Has that taken away the need for racism? Do you want racism to stop because people fear the consequences of it? So people now would choose not to express how racist they are because they know it will take away their jobs, it will take away their platforms, it will get them cancelled. Is that what you want? Or what we want is to get to a point where humans start to see each other as human beings, and rather than as this I don't even know, like, what racism is based on. Like, isn't the solution in a way a sense of us educating each other rather than us attacking each other because we don't feel like we agree on a certain thing, rather than me coming here and attacking you? Is the question not the question is not how do I educate you to see how wrong your action was, and then how do we take corrective action so that we can move forward into a more progressive world? This idea that someone is something, and we now live in a time where people find it within themselves to be very judgmental, and that is a problem, because if you judge other people, sooner or later that shoe is going to be on your foot and you're going to be getting judged. And this is a challenge that I have with society, the society that we're living in today. It's okay, you've judged me, you've sentenced me to abyss, you've cancelled me. At a certain point, you're going to cancel enough people to where people just create another different form of community where cancel people become the other. And now you have a problem because you have other, and a lot of people can identify themselves with other because a lot of people have different views based on social issues. And we cannot all just progress at the same time just because it suits your timeline. We have to progress differently, but we have to have a conversation and an understanding. Yes, Joe Rogan did say some messed up things on his channel, on his platform, but is that enough for us to say, oh, cancel the man? And then the other thing that it falls down to, which I know you're going to question me, is vaccines and whatever, but that is also a different perspective, because now you're taking the fight. These people are fighting over misinformation. That is misinformation based on Joe Rogan's guess. Remember, these people are human beings who move around and have conversations, who host meetings, who do things outside of Joe Rogan's podcast. And the problem that we have in society now is we have media corporations that are being run by petty people who spend thousands and hundred thousands of dollars to get media degrees, to get journal degrees, become journalists and do this, and have a structure of way how they get information, how they package that information, and how they become number one. To where now society has progressed so much whereby whilst watching the news, here's someone on Joe Rogan's podcast going, oh, you see, what they did there is they process the information to a level whereby you can consume it, because for them, what drives platforms like media channels like CNN and NBC and whoever is views, so that the more views they get, the more advertising they do, the more money they make. And when these people start to question what these guys are saying, the authenticity of a lot of things is taken away and it's taken out of context, So now we live in a time period whereby these guys no longer fight fair, because for you to go, the man has over 1,000, 1,000 episodes uploaded, and for someone to go through and track in every podcast that they say the N-word, that they say something so messed up, for them to be able to dig that, the technology that you need, the dedication and the commitment, then to create a smear campaign against the man, to whereby now you cannot argue with him based on on the thing at hand, which was the COVID vaccines, where you're trying to convince people, but now you're being questioned in your tactics. And then now you throw this alley-oop to say, oh, the man is racist. Now we are using the sense of catching people and holding people accountable as a weapon, rather than coming to the table and saying, let's talk about what I'm talking about, based on what I'm talking about, and having these big egos which do not accept defeat when it's presented to them. And it's not even a matter of L's and whatever. We live in a situation whereby you are saying this pandemic that we're living through, it's a new thing which has, it's a new thing. We are learning about it as we go. We're trying to come up with solutions. And we now live in a time whereby each solution you come up with, people can question it. People just don't have to take your word for what you are saying. Defend yourself. If someone goes on Joe Rogan's podcast and says A, B, C, and you say that's false information, then explain to the people why it's false. You know, why is it false? Because now this idea that you guys, you the media, drive the world and everybody has to follow whatever you say, there's a problem to that, because your job is just to report news and allow people to interpret how they interpret, and how people get information differs. Yes, back in the day, you guys were the biggest source of information, but now you have platforms like YouTube, platforms like Twitter, platforms like wherever, where people get this information. And is there chances of misinformation? Yes, but so as much as you, the media as well, you also perpetuate misinformation, because your information is barely driven by truth. Because there is need to, you all have to fulfill a fiduciary duty. So you will not say anything that goes counter to what you guys believe. If you were to realize some of the things that Joe Rogan's guests are saying are true, what are the chances that you will come up online and say, oh guys, yeah, these guys were true and we were wrong? The moment you say you were wrong, that puts your credibility in question, which is something that I believe that the media will not expressly say, like, oh, we feel different, So that's just where I'm at. So now at this point that I've rented, I'll play you the clip from Joe Rogan, and then we can digest what he said.
You got to go to one where there's Planet of the Apes, man. We're going to go see Planet of the Apes. So I look on the iPhone app, and it says, okay, take me to this one. And the guy goes, okay. I go, is that in a good neighborhood? He's like, oh, yeah. Guy barely speaks English. He takes us there. We get out, and we're giggling. Oh, we're going to go see Planet of the Apes. We walk into Planet of the Apes. We walked into Africa, dude. We walked in the door, and there was no white people. Planet of the Apes didn't take place in Africa. That was a racist thing for me to say. But you see what I'm saying. What I'm saying is...
So this will be the first thing. Being an African boy, where I grew up, white people used to call black people monkeys. This is the thing. If you search Southern Africa, like what these people say, they'll call you apes, monkeys, and this was a hurtful thing, because the way we always looked at apes, monkeys, and whatever is they're animals, and people never wanted to be associated with that, and when you're calling someone ape, it's like you're saying you're undeveloped. These guys, I don't even know what they meant by that, but for us it was super offensive. So in this case, what Joe Rogan did say is very offensive for me, being an African, because you cannot say it's a Planet of the Apes. What are you trying to say? We're a planet of people. And it's good that he called himself out for what he said. But the problem is, you said it on a platform. This is not just you and your three buddies. It's on a platform. And yeah, people are going to hold you accountable for what you said. And it's a good thing that he held himself accountable for what he said. So the question then becomes, what happened next, right?
Flies automatically stuck to your head.
Yeah, what happened is we walked into the blackest neighborhood we could find. I mean, there was literally no white people. It was amazing. And everybody was super cool. It wasn't a negative experience. And this is something I wrote on Twitter, that we all went to see Planet of the Apes in a black neighborhood, an experience I highly recommend. Really? And all these fucking people started calling me a racist. I mean, dozens of Twitter people, dude, I didn't know you were racist, fuck you, like black people were saying fuck you. I'm like, listen, man, I am saying it was a positive experience. Yeah, I said party, I highly recommend it. And it was a black neighborhood. And we get in there, right? And we're so giggly high. We're like, oh my God, we're so high. And then I realize, like, whoa, everyone's black here. Like, well, I mean, everyone's black here. This is crazy. And then a bunch of people recognize me and they start want to taking pictures. And it's all good. Everybody's cool and friendly. Cool as shit. Like this guy goes, yo, man, where I know you from? I don't want to bother you, man. I'm not trying to use up your time. Where I know you from? I go, Fear Factor. I go, yeah, that's it. But it's the way he said it was like so cool.
How many people
and we're giggling. Oh, no one did the Smoke Rocks thing, but I took a lot of goddamn pictures. And like I said, super cool, super friendly. This is not a negative story. So then we go into the movie theater, right? It's me, Tommy, and like maybe there's another white person, maybe one other white person. Movie theater filled with black people, and they are having a good fucking time. And you know, people always complain that black people talk to the movie theater and talk to the screen. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But it's good.
It adds to the experience.
Fucking yeah. If that's what you know, and like, so the way I felt like, I'm like, look, I'm in their neighborhood. This is how they go to the movies. Who the fuck am I to be offended by how they like to go to the movies? They were at the movies, and I'm not saying all black neighborhoods do this, but this particular black neighborhood, these people brought babies, bro. I mean, there's a lot of people with babies.
Anyway, we'll pause it right there. So you see, now what you have is the whole story in context. You went to watch Planet of the Apes in a black neighborhood filled with black people, and they had a black experience. Because for us, you know, as black people, when we are together, we're in our community. We don't really care. We don't see anything wrong with our action. And for someone who's not black, when they do come into that community, you have a different form of experience. But when you do tell that story, it then creates a headline. Joe Rogan goes to watch Planet of the Apes in black community, and you can see how people can be offended with it. But you also have to base everything based on context. You have to contextualize what he was saying. This is a longer video. You can go watch it on your own dime and your own time. But the essence of it, it's based on the first clip. You did see my reaction. Should we cancel him for that? Or should we listen to the context? And then the question is, we say, hey, Mr. Rogan, the things that you did say were pretty hurtful. And it's pretty hurtful for me, man. Like, I don't know what's more hurtful for me to be called an N-word or an ape, you know, because I feel like when you call me an ape, there's something that you're trying to say that I ain't human. And that affects me more. You know what I mean? That offends me. But I cannot control what Joe Rogan says and believes about me, or what you guys who are watching this believe about me. The only thing that I can control is my reaction to what you do. All right? Whether I treat you with love or whatever, that's something that's within my control. And we need to live in a time where these celebrities, news people, understand the level of influence that they have on people. Because a lot of us are being hurt in this society that we live in because of these people's influence, which is very negative. Cancel this, cancel that. Now people are even afraid to interact with black people because you never know what you're going to say that's going to be very offensive to the next black person, you know. And for you as a black person, you don't know if the person you're talking to, the next thing that's going to come out of their mouth is going to be very offensive. And you're constantly defensive to listening to what they're saying, that you don't actually listen to what they're saying. But what you're looking for is trigger words that are just there to trigger you to then go into cancel them, which is a problem. America, you have a problem that you have to fix. And stop, you know what? That's a conversation for another day. With that said, let me know what you thought of the Joe Rogan thing that is going through. And yeah, what should be done? Do you think that we should forgive each other? Do you think that we should keep on attacking each other? With that said, I'll see you guys in the next one.